that the stream is live.
Now, yes, the first 2 people have logged in.
Can you hear me now?
So cool animation. So cool.
Uh-oh.
Yep, let's do this.
Oh, there goes the Discord notification. It's live now. Everybody, pay attention. Whoa.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Yes. Welcome to the ESP Home Summer Party.
Okay.
If you're on the new ESP Home YouTube channel, though, they're on the winter release party.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're having this whole debate because Jesse, who leads the development of ESP Home, he's from New Zealand, and it's actually winter. Who knew? I keep being surprised by it. Hey, but before we kick in today, because we have, a full program. I don't know. We have a program. Let's just do a quick introduction round so that everybody kind of knows who are these people on the stream. My name is Paulus Schoutse. I'm the founder of Home Assistant and the president of the Open Home Foundation.
I am Missy. I am the community and social media manager for Home Assistant.
Hi, I'm Andy Gill. I recently joined the Nabokasa team. I work alongside Jesse and Keith, mainly focusing on hardware. Really excited about bringing new ESP Home powered products to the user community, and looking forward to this great first live stream for me.
Sweet. I'm Keith. I work with Jesse on ESP Home as well as hardware stuff for Nabokasa.
And hi, I'm Jesse, the person that everyone keeps talking about. I ESP Home. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Good. We have it's kind of we want to kind of put some more attention on ESP Home. I think we've done a lot of releases. We do a release every month, of course. It's always the 3rd Wednesday of the month, which is nice. 2 weeks after Home Assistant. And we've got a new logo now. We recently, Nabokasa donated ESP Home to the Open Home Foundation. I'm going to touch on that in a bit. We got a new logo, and we also want to do more of these streams just to give kind of people an opportunity to ask us things like, wow, what are the people working on ESP Home thinking about? What is it that they want to build? What are they looking forward to build? Give feedback, give input. Of course, we are like a community of people. We're building this all as open source. There's a lot of contributors each release. Also, this release saw a lot of really cool stuff, which we're also going to talk about. So, yeah, where do we start?
Let's see.
Should we start with the logo?
Why the new logo?
Yeah,
Why?
Why? Okay, yeah. So let's talk about the new logo for ESP Home. And to do that, actually, let's go all the way back to 2018, because that's when Otto Winter, he was a core developer at Home Assistant. He made this little library to make it easy for people to share their data from ESP microcontrollers to Home Assistant. And this library became ESP Home. And everybody loved it. It made working with microcontrollers so easy. And this project, it grew and grew, which, by the way, this is what projects tends to happen in our community because we love it. We put a lot of effort in it. People use it. But ESP Home, it got to a point where it outgrew the time Otto had for the maintenance. And that's when ESP Home started to linger. Now, at that point, Nabokasa, my company, it existed to support the development of Home Assistant. And we saw how good ESP Home was and what it unlocks. And we decided to get involved. So we talked to Otto, we reached an agreement, and we acquired ESP Home. And we then went ahead, we hired Jesse, and later also Keith. And they both were existing contributors to ESP Home. And their task, work full-time and make ESP Home the very best. And in case you haven't noticed, they're pretty fucking good at doing that.
We know.
So fast forward to the last April, and that's when we launched the Open Home Foundation. And with the community, we spent a lot of time building Home Assistant, building ESP Home, and what we have going on here together it's truly special, right? It's just users, they're helping one another make the best thing out there. There are no investors, there are no shareholders, there's no return on investment, and we're all having a good time and making the platforms better for everyone. And we want to make sure we kept it that way. So that's why we started the Open Home Foundation with its mission to fight for the rights of privacy, choice, and sustainability in a smart home. And for everyone that lives in one, of course. Now, Home Assistant and ESP Home, they're now owned by the foundation, and they're the tools we use in this fight. So let's talk now about the actual design of the logo, which was created by Madalena. She's also the one that did the new Home Assistant logo, by the way, that we introduced last year. If you take a look at the logo, you can see that we're all part of one big family now. The Open Home Foundation, Home Assistant, ESP Home. And I really, really love the ESP Home logo because it's really smart. And we're going to try to hold it up. This is the right side. This is the right side. As you can see, it's like the ESP has these antennas on the PCB, and that's exactly how our logo looks. But then it's actually also the E of ESP Home. Now, we decided to give ESP Home a new logo because we're now part of something bigger, right? The Open Home Foundation. And so regardless if you encounter ESP Home or Home Assistant first, the moment you see either, this project, it respects my privacy, it works locally, and it puts me in control of my devices and my data. And, well, you also know that you're going to have a good time. So there you have it. New foundation, new ownership, new logo, same quality people building and sharing the cool stuff. So, yeah.
Great.
Now we should do the logo really big in the screen, I guess.
The big reveal.
Yeah,
Yes.
this is. I know, right? We tried to do a big reveal, but then we accidentally merged everything to production.
Do we have a drum roll?
My bad.
These things happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm really happy with the new logo, and we have updated the merchandise store. We have the merchandise store is hosted on Home Assistant. I'll put it in the banner actually.
Yeah.
I know the best way is actually to just go to homeassistant.io and scroll down because it's kind of annoying to paste that whole link. But yeah, we have two new shirts, one with the new logo, one with the new Made for ESP Home badge, which I think it's cool because it's funny because it says Made for ESP Home.
Yeah.
Yes.
They look great. It was so fun throwing those together.
Yeah.
This one.
There we go.
That's a mouthful.
That is yeah. So
We need a QR code.
yeah.
We need a QR code.
Very good. No, the uniformity is great. I like it. I know a couple people have commented it's a little more difficult to tell the servers apart on Discord, but I think you're on a Open Home Foundation server or one of the one of the related projects. It's cool. It's very distinguishing.
Yeah. And I think that also it kind of brings home for us, and for me the messaging is that we want ESP Home started as a C++ library, right? It was a library that you actually were writing C++ yourself, and then you would call into ESP Home to get it into Home Assistant. Then Otto built this Python layer on top of it, right? So you could configure using YAML. But that was the first really place where I think ESP Home really took off because people were using YAML, used from Home Assistant. All of a sudden, they're building their devices, right? But that was actually not enough. It was for us. We've always want everyone that uses Home Assistant should be able to use ESP Home devices, and what we kind of decided to do is that for people to use ESP Home, they don't actually have to what is using ESP Home, right? Is that building a device? Or is that using a device powered by ESP Home? And for us, the second one is the actual more important because ESP Home, it works locally, the communication is encrypted, you're in full control of the device, You know exactly what happens with the data. It gets updates as long as ESPHome is alive, which will be forever because it's now part of the Open Home Foundation. So it's really good foundation for your devices. And so one of the things that Jesse and I built to make all of this more accessible was ESP Web Tools. And it's a way that you can install firmware on ESP devices from your browser. And we realized that actually what everyone was doing before ESP Web Tools, not just for ESPHome, for Tasmota, WLED, is that they tell you download this Python application, then download this firmware, find the right build for your device, install it, configure it to your Wi-Fi through an access point, then find the IP address of that device, and then you can start using it. And that's just like, if you're not used to this, it will take 30 minutes. If you're good at it, it would still take at least 10 minutes. And disconnecting your phone from Wi-Fi, access point, super annoying. So when we built ESP Web Tools, we solved all of that in one swoop, which was amazing. We created ESP Web Tools is a browser-based library. You can now if you install Tasmota, if you install WLD, if you install ESPHome, you've used this. What it does is that it makes a connection to your ESP device. It reads out the chip of the ESP device. Based on the chip, we automatically select, oh, this is the build that you want on the software. We know which version you want. We can install it on your ESP device. Once it's installed, that's when ESPHome kicks in. ESPHome is this Wi-Fi provisioning protocol that is also part of the Open Home Foundation nowadays. It's something that Jesse and I cooked up. It allows you to scan for Wi-Fi networks, send over the credentials, get the device to connect it to Wi-Fi. Then the device will tell its IP address to your browser. The user can go there. And all of a sudden, within 2 minutes, boom, you have WLED up and running, connected to your Wi-Fi, and you're configuring it, right? And bringing this technology, we didn't just build this for ESPHome, we built this for every open source firmware out there. And that's been we see the adoption now. I frequent like a hackerspace here in New York. And, sometimes I look over people's shoulders when they are playing with ESPs and they just move so fast through like the installation phase, which was like everyone used to get stuck there. And yeah, that's awesome. But that's actually not where we stopped, right? Because nowadays you go to the ESPHome website, you have these ready-made projects. I think we all have seen the M5 stack devices. They have these beautiful cases around it. Like you can now go to the ESPHome website, click ready-made project, and you just buy one of these boxes, and you just install the firmware, and it works. And it's just like, it's perfect. It was actually funny. We were so successful in like the ESPHome users were so successful in buying the ones that are buying these boxes that nowadays M5 stack actually installs ESPHome on it in the factory. And so every box you buy now has a small little sticker like pre-installed with ESPHome firmware, and it will work out of the box. Like you plug it in, Home Assistant detects it, you can start using it. And that's kind of, I guess, where we got to the works made for ESPHome program, right? Like from which we now have cool shirts that even if you're not a made for ESPHome device, you can wear that shirt. But it's the made for ESPHome program is really cool as well, because it allows if people want to, if there's, we saw that there were community members trying to sell devices with ESPHome, and we're like, this is cool, we want to help you with this, but we also want to make kind of a list of requirements, right? Like the things that we want people to be like, what does a perfect ESPHome device look like for us? And the main thing is there, like, well, it needs to be able to be provisioned through either Bluetooth or serials. Is that like when people install it, when people buy it, plug it in, they can easily get it connected. But we also want to make sure it's open source. So if the firmware is for any firmware of any made for ESPHome device is open source, once it's connected to your Wi-Fi inside the ESPHome dashboard, you get a very cool like adopt button. You can adopt the device. It will automatically create a new configuration, link to the original configuration, which means you get like firmware updates, but you can customize it. You have full control over it, which is really cool. And that kind of brings us to this release, right? Because here we are like making life easier for people that sell devices in our community with ESPHome, of which, by the way, like, Andy kind of spilled the beans already a little bit. Like, we want to be one of those people, right? Also, like we're obviously working on ESP Home, but we also have some ideas of products that we think are cool that no one else is making, and we should make, like a voice assistant. And that's like, today. That's why today we have OTA updates, right? So you don't need the ESP Home add-on at all anymore if you're just a user of ESP Home devices. If you're making your own ESP Home devices, get the dashboard, customize it. But now, starting today, it's really a choice. And I think that's a really cool step in like maturing that side of ESP Home.
What does OTA mean?
Well, so Jesse's got to correct me. I know already, but OTA stands for over the air, which means that you can wirelessly update a device, right? So normally you would plug it into your computer, and over your browser it will install the software. But once it's connected to your internet, to your local network, you can actually send a binary to it and say, hey, just download and install this piece of software. And because it runs ESP Home can update itself. Now, normally the ESP Home dashboard would send these binaries, but with the latest update now, we can download them from the internet, from a trusted source. And the reason Jesse's going to correct me is because instead of over the air, if you're an Ethernet ESP Home device, it's going to be over the air.
Over the wire.
Yeah. The ESP Home dashboard actually does this correctly, right? If the ESP Home dashboard, it knows you're an Ethernet device, and you click on update or install, instead of wirelessly, it will say wired. Yeah.
Yeah, so the bulk of that, like the functionality there, was actually contributed by one of our contributors. And so we took that and then chucked a whole bunch of layers on top of it to allow us to, get the device to look where it's, look to a predetermined URL and see if there's basically a new firmware available there. And from there, coming with the next Home Assistant release, the July release, these will show up in Home Assistant so that you can then press the update button, and the device will go ahead without Home Assistant itself and actually download the file and update. No dashboard needed.
I mean, it's really cool to be like just update entities, right? It just plugs into the Home Assistant system. It's right there. It'll feel natural.
It's something that a lot of the people who if you build your own configs and your own devices, you won't use it so much. But if you're purchasing a device that comes with ESP Home, hopefully the vendors of those devices end up using this new OTA update system, and basically they can provide updates to their users without the users even knowing that it's ESP Home. Like, you don't even need to know that it runs ESP Home.
Right.
It's nice to know. And to know that it's ESP Home and it's open firmware and you can do whatever you want with it, but it's not a requirement to know what's running in there for it to update. And you can be sure that it's free and open.
Yeah. And I think.
I was going to say, I think another benefit to it is that if you're not specifically customizing your device on your own, it can save you the time of recompiling, rebuilding the firmware from scratch. A lot of people complain on like a Raspberry Pi or the single board computers. Compiling is very slow. It takes sometimes 40 minutes or an hour to compile a single device. And this can save you, this kind of shortcut that time if you're happy with the firmware that it's shipped with, but you just want to update it to the latest version. Now you don't have to go through that whole compiling process, and so it can save some time there, which is huge.
Yeah, and this actually became very important with the voice stuff, because the voice stuff uses like TensorFlow Lite, which is like machine learning libraries, which take forever to compile, and you need like 2.5 gigabytes or 3 gigabytes. People kept running out of space, this kind of stuff. And there's some cool, of course, we are going to make ESP Home devices, but there's already other people that are making and selling ESP Home devices. The Everything Presence 1 by Lewis from Everything Smart Home is, for example, powered by ESP Home, but also Red GDO. Red GDO rates against the garage door opener. It's a little device that frees your MyQ Chamberlain-based garage door opener and makes it full local control. And, these are just people that made this device. They're selling it for like $30-40 or something. And it's just freaking cool, and you can configure it and tweak it, or just use it if you want, and now you can update it.
Yeah, so we have this sort of sub website called the ESP Home Devices website. I recently created a new page on there made for ESP Home. So these are all of the devices. Well, these are not all of them, but these are some of the devices that have applied and been approved into the Made for ESP Home program. That sort of gives them the stamp of approval from us to say that these devices, do use ESP Home. Their configuration is very user friendly. And yeah, so it does need a little bit of updating. There's only 5 devices on there at the moment, but we need to go through and add the other ones. The vendors themselves are able to update this with a pull request to actually add them. So hopefully in the near future, we'll have a bigger list of devices here, so people can come to this page and see all of the sort of made for ESP Home devices, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there was Adorno. Was he the first one? Maybe he was, huh?
I think so.
Yeah, we made that one like a long time ago.
That device was before I even started at Nabukasa.
I think you were already involved in the development of it, though.
I was helping build the actual tag reader configuration and stuff like that,
Right.
but that was beforehand. Hobby time.
Hobby time.
Cool. Are there any questions? By the way, I haven't been really keeping an eye on the chat.
Oh, hang on. I saw one. I'm curious about this one.
There's one about Tasmota.
Can you clear up the difference between ESP Home and Tasmota?
Yes.
Ooh.
So we have less hair. No. No. The big difference is
Some of us have less hair.
Yeah. So I mean, competitors, as in we compete for your time and interest to install it on a device. We don't compete for your business because they're both free and open source and developed by very overlapping communities, right? Like sometimes even the same people. Big difference is the way it works. So with ESP Home, you start with your configuration. ESP Home turns that configuration into software, and that software gets installed on your device. With Tasmota, they have the software that you install on your device, which you then configure on the device. This has benefits and both sides of benefits. So the benefit of ESP Home is that we only include the parts that you need. So it means that if you are not using a specific feature, and we support like, I know, 1,000 different sensors or whatever, right? Well, we're not going to include those drivers if we're not going to use it, right? So if you only use an LED, then we're only going to include the code to control the LED. This means that ESP Home software is very fast. It means it's very optimized and tuned, where Tasmota has the benefit of everything is already included in the software, which means that if you add an LED to your device in Tasmota, you can just say, now here's an LED, just toggle it on and off, and it will work. With ESP Home, you have to add to your YAML, decompile, which depending on the speed of your computer can take like 10-15 minutes before you can try it. So Tasmota is very quick to get started, right? You install the software, ESP Web Tools from your browser, connect the LED, you're configuring, you see the results. It's very quick to the end game. With ESP Home, it's easier for maintenance of like large suite of devices. If you have 20 ESP Home devices in your house and you change the Wi-Fi credentials, you only update that in the ESP Home dashboard. You update all, and every ESP Home device will get updated and connect to the new Wi-Fi network. But the same, like you can have global configuration that gets pushed to every ESP Home device. So it's really a matter of taste, I would say. And I think in the long run, if you like, this device you want to run for like 5 years, I mean, I would go with ESP Home just because we guarantee that your configuration, well, we have a minor breaking change this time, but generally there's no breaking changes and you can just update it and you get the latest and best features of ESP Home, its integration into Home Assistant, just push to the device. So I'm definitely on Team ESP Home, but that's, I guess, why I'm on the ESP Home stream and not on the Tasmota stream.
To further what you just said about sort of breaking changes, yes, we make breaking changes in terms of configuration, but in the way that ESP Home works, where we're only compiling what you need, if we want to add new features, we can just add them and people can use them and compile them in. If Tasmota wants to add new features and they're already at the flash limit, they've got to drop something else out of the main install. And they do have lots of different pre-compiled versions with all different things that are in there, but you've got to choose when you flash it there sort of what you want to then configure afterwards, which is it can be a bit, I guess, of a process. So yeah, we can always add more. We can add unlimited things to ESP Home, and you're only limited by what you actually want to use at the time.
I was going to say, and even building on that, Jesse, is if there's something that you want to do, if there's like two functions you want to combine on a device and they don't have a pre-compiled binary that does that, then
you've got to
build your own, and good luck. Whereas ESP Home, the building and compiling is something that's highly automated and already solved. So all you've got to do is cobble together a couple components in the YAML and build it, and you're off and running. The other thing that we haven't, no one has said yet, with Tasmota, MQTT, you've got to build all that, and I will say, I'll admit right up front, I personally do not use MQTT at all. I don't have it set up anywhere. I've never touched it. I've never needed it.
You're jumping ahead. You gotta What does it like when you say Tasmota uses MQTT? It means that the way Tasmota shares data with other systems on the network is through MQTT, right? Which is a centralized messaging bus that it works pretty well with Home Assistant, and Home Assistant has an add-on. One click, you install an MQTT server, it automatically sets it up. But it means that ESP now Tasmota will need to know the IP address of Home Assistant, where the way ESP Home works is that Home Assistant scans the network, it finds your ESP Home devices. Home Assistant knows IP, it makes a connection, it asks you, hey, do you want to configure this? You click yes. Home Assistant will automatically fetch the encryption key from the ESP Home dashboard, so you don't even need to mess with that. It's just like, boom, encrypted, direct push connection. It's super fast, super stable.
Yep, and that's exactly where I was going. I would argue it's quicker to get up and running with ESP Home. Even if you've never set one up before, whereas with Tasmota, you've got to get some MQTT broker working and have all that infrastructure set up. So there's additional steps there, more complexity.
I have another one. As asked, because OTA, we're going to be talking a lot about that, right? There's going to be lots of questions. Is there anything that prevents manufacturers, or would the Open Home Foundation step in if we identified that?
So, I mean, it's in the end, it's all about trust, right? Like, do you trust the person you're buying a device from? And if this is a device created, for example, by someone in our community versus if it's created by a Chinese firm, or is it created by, some other firm, right? Like, you always have to, in the end, you have to trust that source of your device. Even when you buy it, it's already there. So if an OTA is abused, yes, it can definitely be abused because you push a software update. We actually see this in, not maliciously, but we just saw this with Philips Hue, pushing a software update that would require accounts, which meant that you had to share your data to the cloud, right? Turning it from a local product to a cloud sharing product. Is there something we would do to step in? I think yes, if we would know, and the Made for ESP Home program, we require that the firmware is open source so that you can rebuild it yourself locally. If we know that a device is malicious, we would, I don't think we have it today, but it's good to put on a list. We already have it for integrations, right? We can send you alerts. We can send alerts saying this device is malicious. Do something about it. We could do the same thing for ESP Home on a certain project name.
Yeah, to be fair, the only thing we can really do is publicly call them out and alert people to what's happening. And then hopefully, the community delivers a new firmware that then doesn't use what the vendor's using. If they're going to go that way, they're going to get burned.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's in that way, in a sense, it's not any different between ESPHome or just a random third-party device that you buy.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, speaking of devices, what is everybody's favorite one for ESPHome?
Ooh. I mean, I'm really into voice right now. But it's not my favorite device. It's just the voice capabilities of ESPHome are freaking awesome. The Atom 5 Echo, like this, the M5 Stack Atom Echo, this little white one. It's a cool device, but it also is not allowed enough speaker microphone, but it's a good deaf mode. But I guess I'm answering it wrong. My favorite component is voice assistant right now.
You did answer it wrong.
I would have a hard time naming one. I build a lot of my own boards for things, so I tend to enjoy the very customized hardware. So I did Paulus, you've got one of the thermostats. I like those. It's one of those things that sits in the background. But there's so many projects out there. And actually, shout out to the Show Off channel in the ESP Home Discord. There's a ton of cool projects there, and if anybody's not on the Discord, go check that out. Yesterday, I just saw someone posted a cat feeder that they built. So that's kind of cool. If you have cats, I don't. I'm allergic, but there's still. Yes, there it is.
This is Keith's thermostat. It's really cool. Like I have it on my wall. The left side is the outside temperature. The right side is the inside temperature. He lives in Chicago. This is Fahrenheit. It's actually really fucking cold on this screenshot.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about the Fahrenheit, everybody. I know it's.
But I should have prepared a photo because I've updated mine with like a Home Assistant background that looks really nice.
Yeah, this picture's a little bit dated. It's the UI's changed just a little bit, and yes, Paulus, we put the Home Assistant background for the wallpaper. It actually looks really cool. So, I do a lot of that. But seeing the projects the community posts, there's just so many. People are doing so many cool things. If you need an idea for a way to get started, check out that Show Off channel.
Yeah, it's true. Like that's one of the best spots to look for ideas. They're in the subreddit too. So like it's really fun seeing everybody's projects. It helps me like get ideas on what I want to do too. Like some people inspired me to see if I could take apart a $150 talking robot of my son so I can get an ESP chip inside of it and control it with Home Assistant. I'm not going to do that to my son's birthday present, but it inspired me to do that. So
yes.
I bought a new air conditioner last week. It was a Midea, which is a brand from China. And when you open it on the front, they actually have this. They abuse a USB port, but they actually use the 4 ports of the USB port for plus, minus, and then a serial port. So, which is also 2 lines. And so they have their own dongle which connects to their cloud. And I was, googling online what to do with this dongle, and somebody just made an ESP Home version. So there's a Midea ESP Home component, and even on Tindy there's just a person, he's like selling USB dongles that just fit exactly in its slot, and they're like, well, it works with any Midea AC, the window unit, the split units, whatever you want, and it just pushes everything local. Like you just buy a big device, create a new smart module. Amazing.
Yeah, the person who made the dongles wrote the components in ESP Home. He sent me some of his prototypes.
Oh, nice.
But they work. So he's got versions that work with almost any air conditioning controller that has a UART port or serial port.
All use
not
the same
USB ones.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to flash it with a different ESP Home component. I have mine, and I have a Panasonic, and so I have a Panasonic one. Works nicely.
Yeah. No, it's so cool because now all of a sudden your HVAC is inside your smart home. It's all local. You can really optimize it from like, oh, just before I come home, I'm gonna do it, or I'm gonna stop cooling when the difference between outside and inside is not big enough. Yeah, lots of cool stuff.
Do we have a link for the dongle?
Yeah.
I can find it.
Yeah.
On the spot.
I know what it's called, so it's not too hard to find.
So there were two dongles on Tindy. The one stopped making it, and the other is still making it.
Excellent. Greg,
So I just
oh, sorry.
so I
I was going to say, managing
Oh, go ahead.
fermentation temps for a craft brewery. This is a first for me. I haven't seen anybody do this.
Nice. Okay, where's our invite, Greg?
nice.
Like, we want to do a field trip.
Send us some samples, please.
Yeah.
Hopefully that comment is going to be held forever. Yeah, I just started experimenting with Ethernet because Wi-Fi range out by my garage. I'm from the UK, so I say garage. It is not great. And so WT32 ETH01s running camera, door sensors, and eventually garage door opener. And that's been pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's people always think we need to be Wi-Fi because we started with ESP chips, which Wi-Fi Bluetooth was their breakthrough kind of technology. But yeah, you don't have to, right? I have these wired power over Ethernet ESP boards from Olimax.
Right, yeah, I looked at those.
Yeah, that's actually I don't think even people know, but one of ESP Home has so many gems that are just hidden in it. And one of those things, in case you don't know, is Bluetooth proxies. And if you turn ESP Home into a Bluetooth proxy, and I'll get to that, how you do that at the end of this. Let me first explain. It allows, because every ESP chip has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And so by turning it into a Bluetooth proxy, you allow Home Assistant to make outbound Bluetooth connections from that ESP device. So you can, and Bluetooth range is super shitty, right? It's made from your phone to your headphones or whatever, like a few meters, like, I don't know, 9 feet or something for the Americans. That's it. But of course, if you want to use, there's a lot of cheap Bluetooth stuff out there, like meat thermometers, just temperature humidity meters, those things you stick in your plant to get like the earth, if you have potted plants. My logs, I use Yale logs, Bluetooth, and Home Assistant. If you install like 5 Bluetooth proxies, you can cover like a big part of your house. Then Home Assistant will automatically pick the Bluetooth proxy closest to the device that you want to control. Home Assistant will also forward all Bluetooth packets all the proxies see to Home Assistant, deduplicated, parsed into Home Assistant. We created a IoT protocol for Bluetooth Low Energy, which is now an open standard maintained by the Open Home Foundation. Shelly has been making devices that work with it. It's like, I just have this device, it's just a button, and it just works out of the box with Home Assistant because my Bluetooth proxy just picks up the packets that it sends. And Bluetooth proxies are awesome. And they're actually so optimized now that Home Assistant can talk and do better and faster Bluetooth over a Bluetooth proxy running on ESP Home than actually using a Bluetooth adapter that goes through Linux into Home Assistant. And if you want to make your own Bluetooth proxy, any ESP32 will do. Any ESP. So just go to ESPHome.io, click on Ready-Made Projects. Actually, I'm going to show this because...
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who still haven't seen it. I know it's been out there for a bit now, but yeah, it would be good to show.
I think also that it's very difficult to show in a way. 1 second. Why am I sharing this one? So you go to the ESPHome website, you see the beautiful new logo. You scroll down, install Ready-Made Project. If this is the first time you see it, welcome. So it asks you, we have a few ready-made projects: voice assistant, Bluetooth proxy, media player, or just an empty ESP Home device if you're just getting started and you just want to have something that you can adopt from the ESP Home dashboard. So if you click Bluetooth proxy, what happens is that the devices underneath here change, just so you can see it.
Make your screen a bit taller.
Sorry.
There we go.
It's zoomed in and stuff. It's a bit of a mess. Yeah, so I'm using the Oli Mac, and these are two preferred ones. Just this one is it's like $6, but it has like a case, so it's easier if you just throw it in the corner of your house. Like, oh, it already has a case, not just a bare PCB. But generic ESP32, if you click connect, it goes into the wizard, but that wizard is not part of the tab sharing, so I cannot show it now, sadly. But it's that's all you need. You just click connect, you follow the steps, and you have Bluetooth. Now
it should be inside there, should it? It should still show it as part of the tab. Like it won't show the serial port selection, but it will still show.
Oh yeah, but I don't have a.
Oh, you don't have one plugged in. You had one in your hand.
1 second. I'm on it. I'm on it.
Hardware within arm's reach.
Yeah, of course. We gotta always have a few waiting around just in case. So I'm plugging it in.
Need a C3?
All right. Can you guys see I'm connecting?
Yes.
Yep.
Install Bluetooth proxy. Boom. Install. That's it. This is just in my browser. I just plugged it in. I don't do anything, right? Well, I click install.
There's a lot of people who are saying this is one of their favorite things. They love the proxies.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's so great to see when my toothbrush is going.
It's a hidden killer.
The cloud.
Yeah. But the other what is really powerful about the way we implemented Bluetooth proxies is that the knowledge about what the Bluetooth protocols are supported is all built into Home Assistant. So if you install a custom integration, you update Home Assistant, you get access to new Bluetooth protocols, you will access to new devices you can control. You don't need to update your Bluetooth proxies anymore. They just sit there. They just proxy, right? They just like a HTTP proxy, just forward the data back and forth. They don't do anything special. So yeah, it says it takes 2 minutes. It's not. I think it's 1 minute, but yeah.
Someone said it's the old version, and yes, I've just triggered it to update all those firmwares now to
Oh.
I think normally that runs like once or twice a day, but we can trigger it manually.
Yeah.
It runs once a week as a scheduled task. But yeah, or anytime we change the firmwares.
So now you can see the installation is complete. You click next. You get like a bunch of Wi-Fi's. Now I'm gonna skip it. And now it's like, connect to Wi-Fi. You get the logs. This is ESP Home. It works.
It's so easy.
It is. And it's like, we just need to buy these devices and connect them together. I think the next step easier would, of course, be if we will sell a device with a Bluetooth proxy, but it's so cheap to buy these, and just the installation wizard already configures the Wi-Fi. Like, I don't know if we can even get better than that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about the voice stuff that we want to build, but can we talk a little bit more about that? Like, because actually Andy should be the one who talks a little bit about improvements that are coming and the hardware that we want to work on.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit, but I'll let Paulus kind of give the detail. But we got some exciting developments coming up that supports the kind of push toward voice and how voice can interact with the smart home. There's some really cool stuff that people are doing, and I think the community are really going to appreciate what's coming down the pipeline here. So Paulus, I'll let you go into the detail and decide what you want to reveal.
Well, I mean, like we've said many times now, we're working on a voice assistant. Like, we've been doing Year of the Voice last year with Home Assistant. We obviously have a bunch of voice experts in-house now. We have a voice. We're going to do a voice live stream next week where we actually have a lot of cool stuff to announce. But for the hardware we're working on, I can already say that like it's going to be using like a new ESP. It's going to be using ESP32S3, but we're going to combine it with an XMOS chip. So XMOS is it's a manufacturer of chips for speakerphones, and so they're really good in like isolating the voice out of like a loud environment with background noise and music, and just get the voice very clear. And Xmos has firmware that is also that you can compile yourself. The source is available. You can update it. So as we are building this device, once it's released, actually as a community, we can start messing with the firmware. Can we make it even better in voice isolation? What are the best settings? And the device, of course, it's ESP Home. You can fully configure it, install your own firmware. We're even going to have support for you just rip it out of the box and just like have some ports exposed, plug it into your own projects, that kind of stuff. So it will be really cool.
Yeah.
The Xmos is quite a powerful chip. It'll be interesting to see where the community takes that.
I think it's even more powerful than ESP, right?
Oh, absolutely! It's like 16 cores. I mean, it's a very powerful chip. Now, it doesn't have built-on Wi-Fi, or like as the ESPs do, or any radios at all for that matter. But it is a very powerful processor. So that'll be exciting to see where we can take that.
That's really cool. So, but that's definitely like many months out. We're working on it. But it takes iterations to get to a place where we are happy and the people that are going to manufacture it are also happy.
So, but we'll talk more about voice next week on next week's stream, right?
Yes.
And we got some cool things that we that like are part of ESPHome, part of Home Assistant, but we don't want to reveal it yet. So for that, you do have to check in next week. It will be on the Home Assistant channel if you're watching on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching the winter release party, you're on the ESPHome channel, and you should go to the Home Assistant channel next week. Yeah.
And if you're watching it on the Home Assistant channel, subscribe to the ESPHome channel too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should like. Can everybody just like hit that like button and the subscribe button, and the bell button?
Get notified, subscribe, like it.
all the YouTube things.
All the things.
Yes.
So
cool.
After you've liked and subscribed, so it'd be interesting if there's any questions here in the audience. I think Tubes is asking for static IPs. It's probably because he is making PoE Zigbee adapters and they don't want to change the IP address. But I think that I saw some questions about Matter and when is ESPHome going to support Matter. It's not actually that interesting for us because Matter is a protocol to share data locally over the network. Matter is developed by the CSA Alliance, the Connectivity Standards Alliance. We are a member of that alliance as the Open Home Fund, as Nabu Casa, I have to say. Home Assistant supports Matter. We can control any Matter device. However, Matter is developed by the alliance, and it means it is developing very slowly because you have to create consensus across everyone, right? And so we want ESPHome, the best experience is focused on Home Assistant. And so the ESPHome protocol that ESPHome speaks and that Home Assistant implements and that anyone can implement is just so much faster, better, existing, has more features. And we are just in control, right? So as we're adding new domains to Home Assistant, we'll add it to ESPHome. As we are building out a voice assistant using the ESPHome protocol, that is not something that could ever work with Matter, right? Like you need your own protocol for that. So if people are saying, I want Matter because I want to control it through Home Assistant, well, that's just Matter is just not necessary for that. Yeah.
I saw someone ask here, is it possible to use the proxy to track fitness trackers to get a location?
There are. So I think Room Presence is like a third-party project from the community that does some tracking from different trackers. I know that you can track your Apple Watch if you have to, but you have to extract the key out of your keychain. It's not that easy. What happens is that things like Fitbit, they are constantly broadcasting Bluetooth, but they randomize their numbers, right? I think they because they don't want to be tracked, right? Because this is a two-sided coin. Like, if we can track the devices in your house, it means anyone can track those devices, right? So there's obviously they're implementing some randomization that if you know the random key, which with Apple Watch, like I said, you can do it. Fitbit, I do not know.
It depends on how they advertise themselves. It's tricky.
I was going to say I've actually got, because I've got an Apple Watch. There's a common prefix that Apple is using, even though the suffix is kind of scrambled. But I've got a couple of the Ethernet boards with an ESP on them set up that it just looks at the signal strength, but it looks specifically for Apple devices. Usually the only one here. So when I go into different rooms, it just looks at the signal strength. But it can be done. It might take a little work depending on exactly what you want to do and what hardware you have. But there are ways.
Yeah. By the way, I mentioned Room Assistant, but actually, I think ESPresence is the one that is more popular. So, yeah, technically speaking, is right.
Technically speaking, is technically correct.
I think that was the one I was thinking of. So, but yeah. No, I think room presence is something that's really cool, but I feel like the way it kind of should, like, I don't think Bluetooth is the best way for that. Ultra wideband is really cool, and let's just say we looked into it, we bought the boards and then didn't do anything with it. So in a way, we've thought about it once, but the idea of ultra wideband, and this is what Apple's Find My network, Apple AirTags are built on. Apple actually, I mean, they just announced it's really cool. You have these the new Apple locks. They will have ultra wideband, so they see when your watch is coming close to it because you're arriving home, and it can automatically unlock the door, which is kind of cool. There's a lot of, if you're doing, knowing who is in which room would be cool. But then, are people always carrying these devices? Probably not, right? Like, but I would love to use it the other way around. Instead of tracking, if I open, for example, the Home Assistant app, I would love to see in which room I am and see the controls for that room to be at the top of my dashboard. Right? That I think is actually something that's really cool, which is way cooler than having, I don't know, I walk into this room, so my playlist starts playing there, right? Like, I think the main feature people use for room presence is to have the music follow them. Like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not that. Yeah, it's a demo.
Just play it everywhere all at once.
Yeah.
really loud speakers in one room and make all the neighbors really happy.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything else. Do we want to talk about like what's new over the past few months? What's important? What we should highlight from ESP Home updates?
I have seen a few questions in the chat already about the OTA changes and also IDF support.
Do you want to show the change log release notes, and we can quickly go through them?
Yeah, you want to share your screen, Jesse? Yeah, am I the one doing it?
Yeah,
I can't do it.
Right.
I would share, but I have dark mode, so everybody would just go to sleep.
Okay.
Instead, we just want to flash everybody's eyes.
I zoomed in some
Too skinny.
Quality website, guys. Quality.
Mobile view.
Okay.
Okay.
1. ESP Home OTA updates. 2.
Read the list.
Can you explain, like, why are there multiple OTA components? When do I use which one and why?
So the first one here is not actually new. The ESP Home OTA updates is the existing OTA mechanism, which the dashboard pushes a file to the device and updates it. It's highlighted here because we made a breaking change in the configuration that now requires everyone to specify it. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see the differences in configuration. Most people should recognize it if they know what the, like, I guess, in general configuration. Going down, probably
There it is. Oop.
So previously you would just put OTA as a single line in configuration, but now you have to specify the platform. The platform we named ESPHome because it's the ESPHome native dashboard sort of upload platform. We did this because there's a new platform for OTA, which is called the HTTP request, which is the second item in the table at the top. The HTTP request one is what allows the device to go to the internet or to a web server, whether that's local or internet, and actually pull the file down and flash on itself. So you can see there the OTA platform itself has an action which can be called in YAML, where you give the MD5 and the binary link, but also the third item in the table above is what we call managed updates, which allows the device to, instead, it pulls a JSON file from the internet, which is an example of a bit lower as well. And that describes where the binary is and the MD5 file there. And basically triggers the chain of all of these different components to allow updating, self-updating of the device.
And this one is actually really cool because this is the same format as the ESP Web Tools manifest, right? So this is, instead of
the base of this is the ESP Web Tools manifest. We added a new OTA block right there in the middle, but this block can go inside the actual ESP Web Tools manifest JSON file with no problems. So any vendors that are providing both a ESP Web Tools web installer and these managed updates can use the exact same single JSON file and don't have to manage two of them. And
we have GitHub Actions to actually automatically compile firmware and generate these files as well, right? So you have a YAML
needs a little updating, but yes.
Yeah. that one will be updated ATA, but you just define YAML files and we compile the latest ESP Home for it with a GitHub action. This is actually how our ready-made projects work and how other vendors are also doing it. And you can just look at the YAML file, right, and just see what's getting compiled, and it's very very transparent. It's very important for us.
And there's also some pieces that you can't really see under the hood. We did a little bit of refactoring to accommodate these things so that we could have the different platforms and reuse code that before was sort of muddled together that maybe shouldn't have been. So there are things going on under the hood too, and it opens the door for future update mechanisms. No promises or anything, but maybe one day you'll be able to update over Bluetooth. Who knows?
Yeah. And we had today we had to do a breaking change because the OTA update was doing more than it's doing. We wanted to split it up, and we tried to avoid OTA updates. We had a very long discussion, and the reason we ended up not, why we made a breaking change was that if we were not to make it a breaking change and OTA would keep acting like is, the moment you would specify another platform, what do we do then? Do we always inject the ESP Home platform? Is it mandatory now, or is that optional? And if it's optional, then you specify one OTA platform and all behavior starts disappearing, which, by the way, because it's the ESP Home OTA, you will not be able to update it wirelessly anymore, right? So that would suck hard. So we made a breaking change, but we made the message very good.
Well, and then even to that point, I know one of the first things that comes up that I've seen people ask is, well, why not just make OTA updates automatic? Just put it in there automatically. Some people don't want that. Some people don't want a random port open on their device that they haven't specified. So we didn't want to just make it a built-in, you always get it type of thing either.
Yeah, and ESP Home is all about if you don't put it in your YAML, it's not going to be compiled in. So we only if it's not there, it's not there. So we force everyone to add it. And there was a comment saying, why does it have to be manual? And I replied in the chat, basically we don't want to manipulate the YAML files that people have and do some find and replace and inject it in there into everyone's files, because that can get messy.
Yeah.
Done some.
Magic always comes to bite somewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. People freak out when you mess with stuff, then they don't know that you were going to mess with their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not great.
Yeah. Yeah, there's only like one main spot that manipulates the YAML, and that's when you rename a device specifically, changing one line of the name. But we know exactly what it's going from and to. So
yeah. Actually, now thinking of that, I just saw a Markdown AST transformer the other day as a Python library. So it could be a little bit easier, but still, you wouldn't handle packages, includes all that stuff, right?
yeah, it's very complex. It only handles if you're using it in the top level. It won't. It will just fail out if you don't have it there.
Yeah.
And it will revert if it can't actually update properly, which is quite nice.
Yep.
Okay. So I put the release notes back up.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should probably also, coming off of it, because it's not listed in here, but coming off of the OTA stuff, mention the safe mode stuff. I think that's mentioned down below, but it is related to OTA because safe mode got broken out of OTA. Safe mode used to be built into the OTA component, and now it is its own component. So that's important only if you have put additional configuration under safe mode, like number of attempts or any of the timeout, how long should it stay in safe mode and such. But that's worthwhile mentioning too. If you've manually configured any of that, you will need to split that out into its own thing. I think most people don't mess with it, but if you have, now you know.
Right.
Yeah, safe mode, for people who don't know, is most people won't see it, which is good. But if you update a device and then that device starts boot looping or getting stuck because of some bad configuration which somehow passed the validation stage, after, by default, 10 reboots, the device will go into what we call safe mode, where it disables every component except for Wi-Fi and the logger and
OTA itself.
the OTA component to allow you to push another update.
Yeah.
So this just stops people getting bricked devices that are not easy to serial flash.
That's actually, not sure if somebody asked it, but like, what happens if an OTA update is happening and I pull the plug?
Nothing. It'll just go back to whatever it was running. It doesn't. If it doesn't finish, if it doesn't get right to the very last stage that says end, it never switches to the new firmware. So it might be a tricky. I'm not sure exactly what happens with the ESP8266s, but the ESP32s have 2 partitions for the application. So you're always running one, and then any OTA goes into the second one, and then it switches over every time.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean,
it's
good, right? Like this is really like, this is the kind of stuff. This is why ESP Home is so awesome. Like we're building just the most highest quality type of firmware you would expect for a device, and just anyone can have access to it. I think it's awesome.
We try really hard to keep it stable, and that's actually Paulus, we were kind of joking about how long it took to get the OTA changes out, but we kind of deliberately waited a couple of releases to let some of this sit in dev and let people test it, because OTA is really a mission critical one. First of all, it affects almost everybody, and second of all, if it doesn't work, your device could very well end up bricked, and now you've got to go take things apart and reflash it with serial. And so we tried really hard to make sure that doesn't happen.
It's not easy to open many light bulbs that have ESPHome or smart switches. A lot of them are sealed from the factory with glue, and you don't want to have people opening them.
Yeah.
We go back to release notes.
What else we got?
Apart from updates, we've got OneWire is already existed, hidden underneath the Dallas, what we call the Dallas components and the Dallas sensors. OneWire is a very generic protocol, though, and so this was broken out into its own component as a base sort of hub, and then the Dallas sensors on top of that. The platform was renamed to temperature sensor because there specifically was code for temperature. There could be other Dallas-based sensors that aren't temperature, humidity, whatever. This allows for new components to be made into ESPHome, but also the one-wire hub there that's using a pin of the GPIO. There's actually going to be a pull request that allows like an expander. So it won't use a direct GPIO pin of ESP32, but it will go through, I think, I2C to an actual external hub, and then you can attach all your sensors to that.
Nice.
So things like that, yeah.
And the one-wire protocol, because I think I messed with this, like it will just log, like the one-wire protocol will start up, it will log all sensors that it sees that you haven't configured, right? So
it does a sort of scan, and yeah, all of the devices respond back with their address, and then it will log all of the ones there so that you can, so you don't, the addresses aren't just magic and people aren't just making them up. The device will respond with its address, and then you basically have to flash twice, update your device twice. One to get all of the addresses, and then you add them into YAML yourself, and then update again.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. As part of the update stuff, or the HTTP request platform was rewritten. It was very technical, sort of what's happened there, but we added more support. Previously, it was Arduino only. If you're using the Arduino framework, we now can use it if you're using the ESP IDF framework, and also on the RP2040 board. So, yeah.
Talking about the Arduino framework, like, why are we still using that? Like, it's not really the.
So we're still using it because we haven't changed it. So. And the reason we haven't changed it yet is because behind the scenes, we're making a whole bunch of changes to the ESPHome codebase to ready it for ESP IDF 5. So currently we use ESP IDF 4, which is a few years old now, and 5 has been out for a little while, but we just hadn't updated.
Yeah. I'm going to interrupt you right there, Jesse, because so I should have introduced this, but there are different ways of building expressive, like ESP chips. They have a base SDK, like the manufacturer of the chips, basically the base operating system, as you want to say, right? And they produced actually two. They produced the Arduino framework, which they initially launched with, such that it was very easy, because every existing library that was written for Arduino would immediately work on an ESP chip, and really allowed them to, create a foothold in the DIY market. But of course. Yeah. The Arduino framework was built on their actual SDK, which is IDF, which stands for Integrated Development Framework.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Intelligent.
Yep.
Who knows?
Integrated Development Framework.
Integrated Development Framework. Yeah, and so
Expressive Integrated Development Framework.
The Arduino framework basically is an abstraction layer on top of the IDF framework. And so if we just make every component work with the IDF framework, then we get faster updates, because Expressive has to update first the IDF framework before it can update the Arduino framework, if it even updates the Arduino framework at all, because the Arduino framework has way less resources, because it's not their main priority anymore. The IDF framework is the way to go. They're big enough. And so this is it has been a big project. I think this has been like at least 6 months, if not longer. We've been like reworking ESPHome to make this transition.
Even longer.
Yeah.
In the end, as a user, you might not notice anything directly, but the fact that we can stay up to date with the code is very important, because one day there will be a library that requires a new feature, and if we cannot use it, or there's a security issue and we have to update and we cannot use it, then that's really bad, right? So in software, you want to stay up to date with the latest SDK. And that's sometimes also, it's kind of annoying, because we're doing a lot of work to clean up the code to get to the latest SDK, and then we have to make sure it works just as good as before. Right? It's just like, but it will be for the better.
The advantage of IDF5 is it's just got better support for some of the variants. I find in particular, for myself, I fight with the S3 boards constantly when I'm using IDF4. I have to manually configure the memory modes and so on, and if I just take the same config and build it with IDF5, put it on the same S3 boards, it just works on all of them every time. I don't have to deal with that, and I appreciate that because it makes fixing things and developing faster. So looking forward to that. Unfortunately, our tests are taking a really long time right now because of.
That's
Yeah,
what
so all of these updates it's a long process to get where we are now, but then there's going to be a sort of a major two-step process. One, behind the scenes, we have when you use ESP32, you don't have to choose the framework, but it defaults to Arduino, and you can override it in YAML to change it to ESP IDF. Right now, that will use ESP IDF4. So what we want to do behind the scenes is change it so that if people that do use IDF and switch it, then it defaults to IDF5. So then we'll be all using IDF5. And then later on, we're going to change it so that the default framework that is chosen will be ESP IDF. There's a bit of it's a long process to make sure that everything is working as expected, because when we do change these sort of hidden defaults, people will complain because something broke that we missed, and we really don't want that.
That's
but you can already try it today, right? So
yeah, of course, yeah. All of these versions and frameworks are all configurable in YAML. It's as simple as 3 or 4 lines.
I will say I have been running IDF5 on all of my devices where I use IDF, which is actually most of them at this point. I think the thermostats are the only thing I'm not using IDF on, and it's because of the BME 680. But yeah, everything's. What's that? Say again, Justin?
I don't use it on any of my devices. I like to make sure that the stable versions are still working for other people as well. So I gotta keep it going on whatever's default.
Yeah.
Keith, somebody's asking, what's the version 5 recommended version?
5.0.2. And if you specify that in your YAML, you also need to specify Platform.io version 6.3.2 in order for it to build. Otherwise, because they're kind of intertwined, so one goes with the other. That will get you some more updated tool chains. Platform.io will take care of that for you, but it does work. I've been like you said, I've been using it for. I started with Nabukasa last May, so it's been over a year now. Yeah.
Nice.
Do telemetry by LoRa. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, LoRa is always it's an interesting protocol, but I feel like for the smart home, it's just way overkill. Like your home, like unless you're a farmer.
I was going to say, are you telling me some people in our community don't overkill their homes?
LoRa's come up quite a lot. It is an interesting, I even hesitate to call it a protocol, I guess, mechanism for transmitting signals. Yeah, it's a protocol, but I think we have some work to do to get there.
I think the thing with the way I see LoRa mainly is that you would have a battery powered device that like every 15 minutes, for example, sees if there's a leak and if so sends a LoRa message, right? And so you can track your boat or whatever, or your something like this. But then of course, ESPHome is not good for battery powered devices, right? You would better off write a custom device that does the deep sleep, these kind of things. If you're gonna plug it into power, well, why use ESPHome and not something that like, if you're gonna connect remotely, that you want to collect a lot of data, right? You might not. Maybe ESPHome is not the right thing for the task.
So on this, I guess it's fine what people are doing. So you can use LoRa with ESPHome as the receiver. So people are using it as the receiver. You can buy LoRa sensors that you put out there, and they will broadcast out. The main issue. The biggest reason we haven't included LoRa, and I've seen people commenting ESP Now, which is a peer-to-peer Wi-Fi protocol, is because there's no data protocol on top of that, or application layer. It's strictly the physical layer there. And so if we do add something, it's not going to work for anybody, because they need to define what data is sent and how it's received, And that's really hard to do because that's then defining a new standard. And
right. I mean, defining you have to define a new standard, right? There's a
it's not like Bluetooth, which has characteristics and services, which are you just read and write them, and many different devices. These packets encrypt or encode their data however they want from all these different devices. There is nothing to say it should be done like this. One thing that I have seen, there was an external component for ESPHome that actually implements the BT Home protocol over ESP now, which is actually really cool.
Right.
And if I was going to implement it natively in ESPHome, I would probably do the same because BT Home is Bluetooth, but it's an open standard that we've created and well documented. So why not use that?
And this is, by the way, LoRa not having a fixed protocol, MQTT not having a fixed protocol. That's why sometimes we end up having to make our own, right? So we did one for provisioning Wi-Fi over Bluetooth or serial. We rather not make standards, right? Like we with Home Assistant, we exist because there is no standard, right? Like we rather implement one standard very well than 1,000 as we do now. But if there's a lack of standards, we will sometimes standardize it. But even the use case for LoRa is not standard, right? Everybody has something else, so it's very hard to standardize. But maybe BT Home over LoRa could be a solution.
Well, it's not that you can choose to do BT Home over LoRa though, because all of the sensors are already sold by companies.
Oh yeah, they've
already have their protocol. So you have to implement something like a Bluetooth proxy, or a LoRa proxy, where anything that comes in is then forwarded on to say Home Assistant, which decodes the packets.
That could work, I guess.
I mean, that could work perfectly fine. Someone's just got to do that work.
Yeah.
Hey, Missy, there was a question about merch that came up. I don't know if there's a link.
Someone asked if there's a water bottle. So that's a thing I'm gonna do very soon.
I need a new ESPHome mug, Missy, or cup.
I'll make sure they do the made for ESPHome ones because that'll be lovely on water bottles. So yeah.
Yeah. So watch the store. And
watch the store.
Pop up in the near future.
We've been adding new things recently, actually, with the updates for everything. We just updated all the ESPHome stuff in there yesterday. So water bottle, I'll throw some in there.
Nice.
The question I just saw, someone asked, will there be an option for changing the partition size over the air? And that I think is a good one. There is a PR open for updating the partitions.
Yeah, there's an
OTA, but I'm not sure about changing the size.
Allows you to basically write you can give it a binary and it will write to any address on the flash. This is very dangerous and it's very advanced because if you write to the wrong place or there's a bad line during the whole process, you've basically bricked your device and you need to serial flash it again. I mean, there's no real way to brick an ESP device. There's always a way to serial flash it, but it forces you to serial flash it at that point.
Right.
When you're writing to those other partitions, there's no fallback if it goes wrong.
Well, and going back to someone asked earlier, what happens if you pull the plug during an OTA? If you're writing the partitions and you pull the plug, your device is you're going to have to serial flash it to recover it. So
it's safe with the regular OTA because it's writing to a partition that it's not using, and it will try and use later, but until that is actually fully done, that's not protected.
Yeah, to give a quick rundown for those who just use OTA and don't have a full picture of how it works, I can explain this in a few seconds. You have a device, it has an amount of flash memory, say it's 8 megabytes. That memory literally gets partitioned in half. You get 2 4-megabyte partitions. The active firmware is stored on one, and the inactive firmware is on the other. When you do an OTA, you're writing to the inactive partition, the one we haven't booted. Once the OTA is complete, it's successful, then we toggle flag and you boot from the other one. That's it in a nutshell, probably oversimplified, but that's what's going on. That way you always have a known good partition that you can boot from, and that's why you can pull the plug on a device and it will recover. when you start changing those partitions and things, you can get stuck. So it's risky.
Yeah.
This has mainly come up as well because people, as Tasmota changed their partition scheme recently, and people can't OTA update from Tasmota to ESPHome recently without some changes. So it's to solve the issue of coming from other firmwares in most cases. But also our Arduino and our ESP IDF frameworks have different partition layouts as well. So if you wanted to switch from Arduino to ESP IDF, you can do it over the air in terms of changing the application, but the partitions aren't updated and it's less than ideal.
Is there a fix on horizon for the clean build files on IDF?
We're getting very into the woods.
It was Snowy. I had to pull him up.
Snowy is one of the mods on our Discord channel. Very helpful. I need to look into it. It's difficult, but yes, when you add new components or top level components into ESPHome when you're using ESP IDF, the compile fails, so you have to end up cleaning all the way and starting it from scratch. It's not nice, and we need to sort of figure out.
Just cache the top level keys. Just cache the top level keys in Python, and then you know if you have to trigger a clean.
We have most of the keys in a JSON file, so
yeah,
I just haven't looked into it. That's all. Well, nobody has.
Snowy, we just don't care. Yeah.
Sorry, Snowy, I tried.
Somebody's asking about updates in Home Assistant. Actually, this is a great one. We haven't even talked about it. We have changed our stance on ESPHome updates in general, where big change to the ESPHome dashboard users. It used to be that if ESPHome would get an update from 2024.5 to 2024.6, we would mark it as saying, oh, your device is out of date. You should update ESPHome. However, if there was no change inside ESPHome that impacts your component because you're just controlling an LED, then there was actually no reason to update. But we were always very happy telling you now, but you have to update. So for a lot of people, the whole dashboard will be purple because an update available was like a line at the top of the bar. The update button will be purple. And so now we've changed this. And so the update button is no longer purple. Instead of overriding update at the top, we don't hide. It's now either online or offline. And so that on the ESPHome dashboard, you won't get pushed to do updates anymore. You can still click the update all button. You still can click the update button. All of that stuff works. Also, on top of that, we've also updated Home Assistant. So in Home Assistant now, because we have OTA updates from the web, you can update entities that are coming with it. We are no longer going to enable ESPHome entities by default. They're still added to Home Assistant, but you have to manually enable them per device that you care about. This is just because people would go crazy, right? Like we would release a patch release of ESPHome. So
yeah. And you get notifications in Home Assistant.
And they are above your settings screen, and people are like, what am I doing? Updates. And so we decided that we'll spam you less. It's also less required. I think, with OTA updates from the web, they will still be added by default. Dashboard powered ones won't be.
Yeah, updating an ESPHome device is never something that should have always been required or I guess made so prominent. It's not something that you need to do unless the update has something that affects you or there's a security fix or something like that. If the device is working, just leave it alone, to be honest. I just recently updated a device that had firmware from 2022.
But it ran.
I had one from 2021, but I updated it when I did like a clean sweep, or almost a clean sweep of the house. So
this is, by the way, interesting to note because we talked earlier about like Tasmota versus Home Assistant. The ESPHome as Tasmota versus ESPHome, the ESPHome protocol cannot have breaking changes. So the ESPHome protocol will always be backwards compatible. So Home Assistant will always support all your 5-year-old ESPHome device that you've never updated. It's fine. It will keep working.
Yeah.
It can be faster if you update, right? Like there will be required certain changes. There was a bunch of caching for Bluetooth proxies that require different partition sizes. Like sometimes you need to update, right? But it will not stop working.
Yeah, some big I guess changes that were made in terms of that. So at some point in Home Assistant, lights were changed to have a whole fancy color mode setting. And so we had to make a whole big compatibility layer between that color mode and old ESPHome devices that weren't using color mode. But yeah, we'll always make the API compatible. It's always going to be backwards and forwards compatible with different devices and versions. We will deprecate fields, and so it'll show up as warnings in new ESPHome versions, but by that version you shouldn't be using the fields anyway.
Tim was asking about packages like the voice assistant one that change often. Yes, they will show up as updates, but they will show up as updates through the HCP OTA update, right? So a voice assistant will just check its version on the web, and it will just offer you an update entity. So you don't have to go through the ESPHome dashboard. It will, but the cool thing is that we have to push a version change to the version of the voice assistant, and only then will you be offered an update. So we can make a few YAML changes, and then only new installations will get that. And then when we update the version, everyone will get it.
Yeah, this is something we'll do in the coming weeks or so. I need to go through and update the workflows there on GitHub.
Yeah. So.
Oh, is that it?
That was the update on updates.
I mean, we've changed everything around updates, I feel, right? The UI, the YAML, the way the internal components are structured, like
the logo.
The logo.
Logo. Got a new YouTube channel.
Yeah. This is definitely one of our bigger releases, I think, and in some ways, not even just by number of components, just the number of kind of under the hood stuff that not everybody necessarily sees but still uses.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess that's it. I'm gonna just quickly then, just to wrap up. Well, of course, people should subscribe. I just want to show the merch. It's
oh yeah,
the mug, the new logo mug. I have to click view all. There's a Razorback, especially for Jesse, hoodies with zippers.
Yes, I'm going to be ordering one of these.
And I did 2 different colors. Same. I did the blue and the white logos, so you can have either or.
This is my favorite one, made for ESPHome.
Yes, I'm going to get one of those as well. A new t-shirt and a new hoodie.
Yep. Excellent.
So definitely check it out if you don't have ESPHome swag with the latest logo yet. You can still even get the classic one, which is also nice. Yeah.
I'm modeling the classic one today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching. The new ESPHome release is out. Update ESPHome. Update all your devices. By the way, if your update entities are not automatically going to be disabled on Home Assistant because we don't know if you're using them. So you can go to entities, search for them, and you can select them all and disable them if you want to. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Yeah. And actually, I forgot a very important thing. If you liked what we're doing and you want to see more of us doing this work, all of us here are actually getting paid by Nabukasa to work full-time on Open Home Foundation projects. We can only do that because people like you are subscribed to Home Assistant Cloud. And so Home Assistant Cloud supports the development of Home Assistant, of ESP Home, of a lot of different other projects, GWave.js, ZigPy. There's like 240 projects in the Open Home Foundation now that are all directly, indirectly supported, but all because people subscribe to Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. So support our work, go to Nabukasa. It's not just supporting our work, you also get like remote access to your Home Assistant instance, end-to-end encrypted, access to speech-to-text, text-to-speech voices, which work perfectly with your ESP Home voice assistants. And it allows you to hook into both Amazon and Google Assistant if you were to choose so.
And there's new features coming too.
There is a cloud backup coming, so super stoked about that one too.
Yay.
Cool. All right, thanks everyone.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks.
all. Take care.
Yeah.